Is my screen visible, sir?
Yes, it is visible.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Akash. So, as Dr. Akash said, that literature search is necessary not for only systematic review and meta-analysis, but also for the day-to-day life. However, in this talk, I would create myself literature review for the systematic review only. Maybe if we have time, we will discuss about the common scenarios for which we can do literature search. So first of all, I want to declare that the software and databases which are we discussing have no conflict of interest for anything. And I have very, very limited experience. So it is based on the overall existing literature, and I would be happy to take any further guidance on this aspect. If we look at the type of reviews, broadly there are two kinds, narrative review and systematic review. We know that systematic reviews are, again, there can be two situations. One is that the studies are very similar and they can be statistically combined. And another situation is when the studies are slightly different or maybe similar, but they cannot be statistically combined. If the studies cannot be statistically combined, we call it as qualitative systematic review. It means we are doing everything in a systematic way, but we cannot combine them quantitatively. However, on the other hand, if we can combine them statistically, then we name it meta-analysis. So important point is, it is not necessary to have a meta-analysis for every systematic review. It can be very, very qualitative systematic review. So what are the differences between narrative and systematic review? Why there is so much hawks that, okay, this is labeled as systematic review, why not just a review? If we look at the narrative review, generally we try to tackle a broad research question as compared to a systematic review when we have a very focused question. The literature search for a narrative review is generally very vaguely specified. The author tend to say that we search this is the database, and nobody mentions that these are the number of studies and this was the methodology. And definitely one has to be at bias depending upon his or her area of interest if the thing has to be done in a narrative way, which is not very systematic. On the other hand, in a systematic review, research question is very focused. We will see that how the research question is very focused. Literature search is very comprehensive. It has to be transparent. That is very important. We cannot just vaguely mention it. It has to be very transparent and reproducible, that the anyone who is doing using the same systematic strategy will get the same results. Study section is very, very specified, which contains study design and research question in PICO format. Methodology is rigorous and structured for a systematic review. The synthesis can be qualitative as well as quantitative, as we discussed. Because of these qualities, the risk of bias is likely to be low. So that's why we say that if somebody has done a systematic review, if another researcher want to do same review, the results should be same. They should not differ, because if we are following a standard approach, the results should not differ. There should not be any bias. So before we start doing literature search, we sometimes eagerly jump to start doing literature search before even defining our research question. So before we start, important thing is, first we have to identify that, okay, there is need for doing a systematic review on this aspect. And that need should be based on a clinical scenario. Like if we look at the COVID, various treatment options, whether HCQ is good or bad for COVID, what are the conditions in which corticosteroids should be used. So these things are based on need, clinical need, rather than availability of studies. So we should not go with the availability of studies to start a systematic review. Second is, before we jump for a systematic review, we should make sure that the similar reviews either not published recently or not undergoing. Because if it is published recently or somebody else is doing, we are just replicating the same things. Results are likely to be similar, so it will be wastage of effort. So that's why we say that one should not do same systematic review at a different perspective, because things will be same. So as I have said, we have to check whether similar review is published or not. So where do I check that systematic review, whether it is published or not? There are various databases from where we can search. The commonest is Prospero. This is a prospective database of the systematic review. So one can easily search with using the search terms in Prospero, And if one has already registered that review and we do not have any standard reason to conduct that review in a different way or repeat that review, there's no point of wasting the effort. We should not register that review, at least in the same structured format. Another place where we can search is Cochrane Library. If there is already a Cochrane which is recently published in last 1 or 2 years, and there are no major studies which has been published recently, or some reviews ongoing, protocol is registered, we should not duplicate it. Other sites are like Trip Database and the John Briggs Institute websites. So these are the various places at which one should do a thorough search before heading to doing a systematic review. So next thing will be, once we decided that, okay, our systematic review which we are planning is new, it is a novel, and it will definitely answer a question which is not answered, then we will write and register the protocol as a structured protocol at one of these websites or databases which I have mentioned. So once we have registered, during registration, we have to define our review question, and that review question should be in PICO format. So PICO, as you know, is P stands for population. So what is the study population which we are covering? What will be intervention? What is the comparison arm? And what are the outcomes which we are studying? So we should clearly mention all these things in our review question in the protocol itself, not at this stage of doing review. So the PICO in a systematic review are of three kinds. One is review PICO. The review PICO is the question on the base which form the basis of the eligibility of studies, means which kind of studies are required for that question. It's review PICO. Second will be PICO for each synthesis. It means what will be main review question in that given systematic review. Third will be PICO of individual studies. So that is, if suppose we want to do a systematic review with a given PICO, but it might be possible that we do not have exactly that kind of studies, and we need to modify it looking at the available studies. So that will be PICO of included studies, and that will be at post hoc only. And we need to clearly mention that this PICO is modified because of this issue. And our previous PICO was the which we have already mentioned in the protocol. So let's come to review PICO, first one. Suppose I want to study the prevalence of acute kidney injury in preterm infant. So what kind of studies will be required? Like prevalence studies, large case series, cohort, or maybe interventional studies with one arm where there is no active intervention is done. Similarly, one would like to study with COVID-19 develop MIS. So the requirement studies will be typically the observational studies, which has followed the babies and the children up to a certain extent and has seen that what proportion will develop MIS. To answer these kind of questions, we need more of observational studies or intervention studies where of the arm which does not contain any active intervention. But if our research question is like, does routine pre-feed gastric residue aspiration as compared to no routine aspiration in this is the clinical question a neonatologist would like to ask, that whether doing a routine pre-feed aspiration thing, which is in our routine practice, has any advantage over no routine aspiration in decreasing the risk of NEC. So to answer this kind of question, what would be the study design? So definitely we can understand that there is one arm which should contain intervention, another arm should contain the control. So the study design will be either it will be a case control type, or it will be a cohort with some comparator, or it will be a randomized control. That will be the choice of study design. Definitely best will be the randomized control trial to answer this question. So I would like to include randomized control trial as the first preference. But if there are no studies, then I can go to case control or cohort with comparator design. So this thing which we have to define before registering our protocol, means at the protocol stage itself, we will write that this kind of study we are going to include. So if we summarize it, to answer any question, this study should address the desired question using a desired study design and desired type of publication. So this is very important, that we have to mention that in our literature search, whether we'll be searching only published studies or unpublished data also. What will be the language restrictions, whether we want to search for only English studies or any kind of language, it depends upon the scope. Suppose we are doing systematic review on COVID, or we are doing literature search for COVID in 2020 March. And at that time, most of the studies were from China. And it is likely that these studies will be published in Chinese. So we cannot exclude the Chinese language. So it depends on our research question, whether we want to exclude certain language or we want to be inclusive. Similarly, we have to mention whether included studies will be published, those who are published in index journal or non-index journals or gray literature. So all these things have to be defined before registering a systematic review. So this is important in study selection. So next step will be PICO for each synthesis. So this is nothing, it is the research question which we formulate. So I will take example of this research question throughout this presentation. That does routine pre-feed aspiration as compared to no routine aspiration in preterm gavage feed infant decreases the risk of NEC. So here our population is preterm infant was still on gavage feed. Intervention is routine pre-feed aspiration. Control is no aspiration, and outcome is NEC. We have to define the stages of NEC for a more concise outcome. So to simplify it, I will break down this research question into 4 parts. Population. So population is, we know they will be infants, they will be preterm, and they will be gavage fed. So this is known as simplifying the concepts. Intervention will be gastric aspiration, which is also known as pre-feed aspiration. Comparator arm will be no aspiration, and outcome will be NEC. Stage we can mention whether we want NEC stage 2 or more, or any stage NEC can be mentioned. So the complex question has to be simplified in this way so that we can develop a search strategy for that simplified format. So once we have defined our research questions, the next step will be, okay, who will do the literature search, where I'm going to do that search, what will be the exact search strategy, and how I am going to do it. So I would take all of you one by one to answer all these questions. So first thing is, who will do? So this is very important, that doing a literature search for review or meta-analysis is a teamwork, because in second slide I told that the risk of bias should be minimum. If you have more people with different expertise, the risk of bias is likely to be lower. So I will tell you why we want more than one. So I've seen many systematic reviews which are done by one individual only. So it is not recommended. It is better to have a team. So who should form that team? So first and foremost is, if you want to answer a clinical question, like suppose the same question which I asked, then we would like to have a neonatologist or a clinician. I would like to have a statistician also, because we know that there will be a lot of statistical analysis. That statistician can be a clinician who is good in statistical knowledge. So we want someone who had good statistical knowledge. We want someone who is good in subject matter expert, somebody who is good in the systematic review part also. Somebody is good for the neonatology, because we would be requiring the advice of that expert throughout our systematic review. We want someone who will do the literature search. So typically a librarian is required, but if you don't have access to librarian, one of or two team members has to take that task. So definitely we need at least these 4 kind of individuals with 4 different responsibilities. In any case, there should not be less than 2 individuals for doing a systematic review. As per Cochrane recommendation, minimum 2 are required, and definitely as the saying goes, the more the merrier, because it will ease our work and it will increase the credibility also. So next step will be where I am going to search. So we are aware of many databases, typically like Medline, which is accessed by PubMed, MBS database, you must have heard of, Web of Science database, Cochrane library, Scopus citation database, PsycInfo is for the psychiatry articles, or CINAHL typically for the nursing and aligned sciences. So there are multiple databases. So one would ask that which database am I going to search? So the answer, and again there may be more of a gray literature kind of thing, like certain WHO database websites from the published dissertation or theses. from clinical trial registries like CTRI or clinicaltrial.gov. One may like to search the conference abstracts, typically the past abstracts, because if this study has been conducted in last 1 or 2 years, it is unlikely that it will be published that soon, and it may have been presented in these conferences. So it is good to search these conference extracts and the trial registries to get an up-to-date data on the given topic. For certain policy documents, for like somebody wants to do a systematic review for making policy for COVID, it will be good to have access to the government reports like ICMR database or WHO database, CDC database. So depending upon the scope of review, one would like to include or exclude these articles. Nowadays, we know that there are a lot of studies who are published as a preprints, typically COVID related. So if you want to do an up-to-date research on COVID, it will be unwise to exclude these preprint servers. So one would like to include these preprint servers also if this something has to be done on a topic which is very, very recent and which have n number of publications coming on day-to-day basis. So how one would decide, because there is huge databases and one cannot do each and everything. So the decision will be based on scope of research question. If your research question is very focused and narrow, probably would like to search the relevant databases only. If your focus question, the research question is broad, it pertains to policy making for a country or maybe whole world, it would have to be broad. It cannot be narrow. Second thing will be availability of resources. How many people do you have? How much time do you have? How many available databases access you have? It will depend on that also. Third thing, important thing is database properties. So there are certain inherent properties of database we should know. One is the overall coverage of database for given literature. What is the recall rate? How much is the precision? I will be discussing these things individually in next slides. What is the reproducibility, which is an important aspect of systematic search. So whatever database we are searching, this search should be reproducible and should be transparent. These things are important because typically Google Scholar scores very poor in reproducibility and transparency, and that is the major disadvantage of Google Scholar as a search engine. So if you want to know the approximate coverage of databases, this is a rough guide based upon the various systematic use done on the medical science, and this is related to the medicine, surgery, neonatology, pediatrics. The overall coverage for Medline covering the medical sciences sector is 92.3%. This goes up to 97.5. If one combines Web of Science, it can go as high as 99%. So you can see that if we are combining one database, there is slight improvement. But what should be our threshold? The next question will be that what threshold should I consider? Whether I will go for 100%, 99%, 95%, 90%. So as per the Cochrane or other major research societies, they recommended is your database coverage, which you are including, should be more than 95%. It means at least you should be covering 95% of the available literature that aspect. And you can see that Medline alone has coverage of 92.3%. So one thing which we can say for sure that Medline alone is not sufficient for doing a literature review for a systematic review and meta-analysis. So please do not rely on Medline alone. Combine at least one more database with Medline. So this is the takeaway. Again, I would say that more is merrier, because if you have resources, you would like to include more. So what Cochrane suggests that you should have minimum 2 Medline center to have MBase. The database for any systematic review is 3 Medline, Central, and Embase. If you want to do more extensive search, try to include Web of Science if you have subscription for that. If you want to do literature search for a topic which is related to nursing, typically like our research question, whether pre-feed gastric residue aspiration is good or bad, what should be the feeding schedule, 2 hourly, 3 hourly, what should be the nursing position. The published literature will be more easily available and more likely to be present in CINAHL, which is the comprehensive database for the nursing health and allied reviews. So one would like to include CINAHL in the such databases if we are doing something related to literature search. And typically for neonatology feeding reviews, it is preferred to include the CINAHL. If you have, as I said, if you have broad question or more researches, try to include trial registries, gray literature, or unpublished data. If you want to do systematic review of trials, it is always good to search for the trial registries at least. So next thing comes that how do I search? So there are various search engines. These are databases which I discussed. So there are various search engines like PubMed is a search engine for Medline. Microsoft Academia, again Ovid is search engine for Medline and Central. EBSCOhost is a broad database cum search engine which includes Medline, Central, Embase, CINAHL. So these are various search engines. So depending upon the availability or access, you can choose either of these search engines to search the given databases. So as I said, at least 2 are required, more is better. So next, we will now move to our specific aspect of this talk, that how to structure the search strategy. So whenever we are making any search strategy, it should have 3 set of terms. So first thing is population. So what population we are going to tackle in this systematic review? Like in our research question, our population was preterm infant. So we have to include that in our search term. Second is intervention. It means what intervention we are studying in the given population and what are the terms related to that thing. Third is the study design. As I said, that it is important to define a priori that what will be my study design to be included in this systematic review. So these are the 3 set of terms which are required for structuring any search strategy for a systematic review. Important thing is one should avoid including outcome in the search, because it is said that if you include outcome, it is likely to be very narrow, it is likely to be biased, because it might be possible that few studies has not reported that outcome. So if one is not reporting that outcome, then it is at risk for bias. So we should not include the outcome in the search strategy. Like in our case, NEC is the outcome, it should not form the part of search strategy. Second thing is, do not include each and every term of research question, otherwise it will become too vague and too broad. So how to optimize that we include these 3 kind of terms and exclude these 2, we will see in the subsequent slides. So come to our research question. So our research question was whether routine pre-feed gastric aspiration as compared to no aspiration in preterm infant decreases the risk of NEC or not. So our population is preterm infant on gauze feeding. Intervention, as we have already discussed, that gastric residue aspiration or pre-feed aspiration is intervention. Study design is RCT and outcome is NEC. As I said, that the search strategy should include only 3 kind of terminology. One is related to population, second related to intervention, third related to study design. So here our population is infant who are preterm. So now we have to break this population into various subsets. So in infant, it might be possible that somebody has used term neonate for infant. One may say neonatal units, newborn, prematures, premature babies, preterms, or studies might have used low birth weight, or just LBW or VLBW. So there can be various names given to the infant in individual studies. So one should know that what are the possible common terms for that infant or search terms to be used for the study population. Like in our case, infant, so we know that the study terms can be neonate, neonatal, newborn, premature. So all kind of possible search terms has to be documented, that this will form the search strategy. Similarly, if we look at the intervention, our intervention was gastric residue aspiration. So the terminology might be, somebody wrote gastric residue aspiration, one can say feed residue, one can just write gastric aspiration, one may write just gastric aspirate, just pre-feed aspiration, or maybe aspiration. So all kind of terminologies has to be thought of and should be used while we are doing our literature search. Similarly, for a randomized control trial, such terms can be randomized control trial, controlled clinical trial, or one may just write we have randomized infants, or infants were randomly divided into two groups, or this trial compared two groups, or one group received placebo. There can be various terminologies which can be used instead of just randomized controlled trial. So we have to use these variety of terms to define our study design also. So this slide depicts the various search terms to be used for population intervention and study design. Important thing is, if we are looking for the search terms in the rare kind of studies, or we feel that it might be possible that individuals have used different search terms, it is a good idea to look at the previous published studies for these search terms. And if there are different search terms used, we should include that those terms in the search strategy itself. So next thing will be to understand the concept of Boolean operators. So Boolean operators are something which are used to combine different terms. So these are or. Or is typically means A or B. I want to include both is or. And typically means combination. So something which have A as well as B. Both things should be there, then only it will be included. And not we already know. So I would like to discuss these things using an example. Suppose one want to do a study or search on the MRI findings of neonates with birth asphyxia and encephalopathy. So there will be certain studies which include the neonate with birth asphyxia who has underwent MRI. These neonates may or may not have encephalopathy. There may be certain studies who included neonates with encephalopathy only, which can have varied etiologies. So if you want to study the MRI findings of birth asphyxia, you have to include both kind of studies, because the encephalopathy studies will also include certain studies which studied the babies with birth asphyxia. So if I want to study that broad question, I have to include both these kind of studies. It means I will use the terminology or, means either this or this, both are good for me. But if I would say that I want to study only the MRI finding in the babies who had birth asphyxia induced encephalopathy, it means the neonates who had hypoxemic ischemic encephalopathy. So only those the babies with birth asphyxia and encephalopathy, as well as the studies who has reported encephalopathy with etiology as birth asphyxia. So the only the studies which include both the components will be combined using AND. So you can see that AND has become very only this much studies which are including if you are using the term AND. However, if you are using OR, it is very broad. Third thing can be, one might say that I want to study MRI finding in birth asphyxia, but not encephalopathy. It means birth asphyxia, not I. One, excluding this white one also from the birth asphyxia. So that will be not. So to summarize, if you want to a liberal search, which is ideally required, we should use or. If you want very restrictive, we should use and we should avoid using not unless until it is absolutely necessary. So now in next slide, we will understand that where to use or and where to use and. As we discussed in the previous slide, that there are various terminology for our study population for infant. So we all these we combine these. It means we are including studies which are including terminology as infant or neonate or neonatal. Anything out of these will be included in the review. Similarly, for intervention, for individual search concepts, we will combine using or. But for combining both of these, we will use and. It means for a research question, we want to include studies who has used both this study population and this intervention. We do not want to include studies which has this population but not this intervention. Similarly, this intervention is there but population is different. We want this studies which has both this population, population as well as this intervention. So we'll combine these two broad concepts using the word and. So once we have understood the concept of or and, next thing will be to understand certain terminologies which we commonly call as controlled vocabulary. So first and foremost thing is to index terms. So we have heard of MES or empty term. So MES is nothing. It is an index term which is known as medical subject heading, and it is used by PubMed and Central. So these terms are used by the database operator or managers to separate the articles and to organize them. That okay, if it is article is related to neonate, they will use the MES term infant or neonate to categorize them as a single entity. So this is for indexing purposes, but it will make our job easy, because if we know these indexing terms, it will be easy to search that database. Like MES is for PubMed and Central, M3 is for Embase. This is Embase subject heading, and for CINAHL, we are use the term known as major subject heading, known as MJ. So we should be thorough with these terminologies. So important thing is the MES terminology. Suppose for PubMed, for neonate MES is infant, it means not necessary that Embase will also use the index term as neonate, and CINAHL again it is not necessary. So search terms may differ across the databases. So you should individualize your search term as well as individualize your search strategy. So this is important, that the search terms and terminology has to be individualized. So next thing will be to identify synonym or known as entry terms. So synonym means similar words. As I said that for infant, synonym will be neonate, preterm, premature, or babies, very low birth weight. They are synonyms. So we have to identify those synonyms and we should use them liberally. Second terminology is explode. Explode is nothing. It has a default system that will capture the similar terminologies. So if we use the thing explode, the database itself will identify the relevant terms and will search in the given data within the database. Third is, while using these MES terms, it is important to use the free terminology also. Like if we are using infant as a MES term, it is important to search infant as a free term also. So we will see an example that how can we do this search using the MES terms, explode, and the synonyms. So let me, okay. So I have to bring this arrow, sorry. Sorry, yeah. So I will take you to a web page in which we would like to discuss that what are the various kind of synonym or search terms or entry terms. So I have already placed that infant or newborn as a MES term. If we look at, this is the PubMed database in advanced option, and once we go to this MES of the infant or newborn, we will find these things, that there are certain subheadings, that neonate with abnormalities or adverse effect, they are subheadings. There's something which is known as MES major topic. If you click it restrict to MES major topic, it means it will not explode. It will search just MES terms. Next is, there are certain entry terms. So for an infant, the entry terms are infant, newborn, newborn infant, newborns, neonate, neonates. So these are the terms which I was talking. That if you do not know that what are possible entry terms, it is a good idea to go to this MES website or PubMed MES option and put your search term, get the MES term for that, and look for these entry terms. And we can see that for an infant, the MES word is infant or newborn, and this MES word includes infant which are low birth weight, infant which are small for gestational age, infant which are very low birth weight, premature,
Sorry to
post-mature.
sorry to interrupt, Dr. Joginder. Are you trying to show some video or web page?
Yes, web page.
Yeah, but it is not visible. Slides. You will have to close down the
Sorry.
PPT, then it will be visible.
Okay, so I'll just try. Now is it visible?
No.
No.
PPT. You have to unshare, then you can open the web page and then share. You can unshare, then share again, whatever you want to say. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
sorry, share screen, right? Okay. So I would like to share screen. So I think by this option, I will be able to share. Yeah. Okay, sorry. So this is visible now?
No. Again, PPT. Now it is visible. Yeah. Excellent.
Oh, I'm sorry for this inconvenience. I will go again.
It is accepted. No problem.
So this, I entered into MESS database, which we can go through PubMed or maybe through MESS website available through this PubMed. And I put the term neonate and I will look for the MESS term for neonate. So let it process. So it shows that MESS term for neonates are infant newborn or jaundice neonatal. So we have to search which one suits our definition. So as we know that this one, an infant during first 28 days of life after birth. This is our standard infant definition. We would like to include this term. So we'll click on it and it will show the various options under the MESS heading. So if yes, so this is the infant or newborn. So there are certain subheadings which I was discussing. And then again, there is option to restrict to MESS major topic. If we click at this, then the database will restrict only the infant which is indexed in this database. No export, no free terms are used. And if you do not click it, then MESS, the PubMed will automatically explode it. So the under this heading, we have certain things known as entry terms, which I was talking, that the entry terms neonate in PubMed database is infant, newborn infants, neonate or neonates. So we can choose the entry terms from this place. Although for a given database, if we use the explode option, it will automatically search for these entry terms. But we have to insert this terminology as a free term also. And this is the hierarchy tree typically seen in the PubMed advanced option. We can see it under the heading infant and newborn. The PubMed MESS infant includes everything which is labeled as low birth, weight, premature, post-mature, or extremely premature. So by using this option, we can go to the MESS heading. We can identify our MESS terminology as well as entry term, and which can be used as free term. Okay. So now PPT is visible, Dr. Akash?
It is visible. Kindly make it full screen.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So next thing is proximity operator. So sometimes during search, we can write that I want 3 words within 5 distance. Like somebody want to do study on marasmic infants. So one can say that, okay, I want to study marasmus, but I do not want to include it in children or the older age. So one can write that adjacent 3 words. This will be the second word. So one can write that marasmus adjacent infant or 3 or 5. So if anything which is in near 3 or 5 words will be shown. So it is not a common option to use, but one may use this proximity operator. Important next one is truncation. It is an important concept that neonate, neonatal, neonatology. It is not necessary to put all 3 things together. If you use this truncation mark, anything beyond this will be captured. It means if somebody uses neonate, neonatal, or neonatology, it will be captured and database will show that in this search. Similarly, for infant, if you put this asterisk after n, it will capture anything which comes after n and will show in the results. Similarly, this truncation mark can be used in between also. Typical example is if there is difference in the spelling, that US and UK spellings are different for pediatric that one may be using PAE, another is using PE. So you can put just asterisks. This database will take care of that. Similarly, in randomized, one may be using Z, some can use S. So if you put asterisks, then all the studies which use randomized as Z or S will be included. So this is the use of truncation. But here I would like to say that do not be so much rely on liberal using truncation. It is better if to use the terminology as full if you know it, and truncation can be used as an adjunct only, not as an alternative. The third thing will be to understand certain field concept. One may say that I want to search only title, another says that I want to search this word only in abstract or in the full text or mess. So we will, then I would like to take all of you to a video showing the live search, how to understand these fields. So again, I will going to the web page, and this is the PubMed Advanced Search Builder. If you click at the PubMed, it will show an option as advanced. Okay, I will click that as I will show. So suppose we do Google, go to PubMed, and then it shows advanced. So if you click at advanced, it will show the search builder, and in this advanced there is one query box. Here we enter the search terms, and these are the search fields. If you click at this, it shows all fields. It means if I want to search for neonate, and if I use all fields, click it, then neonate will be searched across the whole articles. It means if somebody has used the word neonate in abstract or in the full text, in references, everything will be captured. But we know that if I am capturing everything, my search will be very vast, and it will be very difficult to go through those studies. So it may be wise that I restrict it. So there are certain things on which I can restrict. First thing is, it may be wiser that I just include it whether the given term is given in title or abstract, because it is very unlikely that I am looking for a study in neonates who is comparing pre-feed aspiration versus no aspiration, and that study do not include the term neonate or infant in the title or abstract. It is extremely unlikely. So what I can do, I can just go to the title and abstract, that this is title or abstract. I just click it and I type is neonate and click it. So once I click it, it will show neonate title oblique abstract, and this makes a difference. So how to see that whether there is any difference or not? Suppose I am using the first search, that neonate in the all text. It means I am not restricting it to either title or abstract. Then it's showing this 7.8 lakh results. And again, I will go to the same search, and I will show that if I use it rather than using the all fields, if I restrict myself to title or abstract, sorry, and type again neonate and then search it, then number of search increase from lakhs to 31,000 only. So you can see there is huge difference, and it is very unlikely that this 30,000 is missing any study which is relevant to us. So whenever we are making a search strategy, we should understand this concept, that rather than choosing in all fields, it is a good idea to use the terminology in title and abstract, typically for the major search terms. But for the minor things like interventions or maybe study design, it may not be good idea to include only title and abstract. So you can again objectify that which are the fields you will be using. So like we can use title and abstract, or again from here we can choose the mess. There are certain mess major topic or mess subject heading or mess term. Suppose I click at mess term, and I know that infant is mess term for neonate, as I have shown previously, and I click it and go to the results. Then we will see that how many results appear. Using the mess infant alone, we are getting huge results. So this mess term is capturing, mess infant is capturing almost all the studies where infant are being studied, but this is still less than the all part. So this is how we use the search fields. typically for every database, there are different search fields, but overall they are similar. Like some may combine title, abstract, and keywords in Embase, or title alone, or title or abstract alone, or all text alone, or mesh heading only. So we should be using these in while we are making our search strategy. Okay. So next thing will be, once we have decided the key fields and we are developing our search, we have to understand that we can apply certain restrictions or limits, but we have to justify that whether these limits are useful or not. First restriction is language, as I discussed in the second slide or third slide itself, that language restriction should be used only when necessary. Suppose we feel that there's no access to the, because nowadays we have Google as a converter, so we can easily convert one type of language to English. So we should restrict only and only when there is strong rationale to restrict for that language. Otherwise, we should not use the language restriction. Second is the article types. So you might see that someone refers that I would like to exclude letter, comment. We should not exclude, because it might be possible that a study is published, even a large, I would not say large, some randomized control trials are published as letters or comments. If you exclude the type of publication as letter or comment, you will miss those studies. Again, age, you see that if you look at the PubMed, on left side, these are the restrictions. It will show that age as an restriction term, that you may restrict the age to newborn, or you may restrict to beyond 18 years or adults. Species, again, it will ask whether you want to restrict for humans or not. Publication date, again, you can restrict. This is an important. Suppose you want to study COVID only. You know that it appeared only in 2019 end. So you might want to restrict your search to the 2019 beyond only. Similarly, this PubMed offer, as well as other databases, offer study design filters. Here you can see that it includes study design like clinical trials, meta-analysis, randomized control trial. So although the Cochrane says that we can use study design filter, I strongly believe that we should not be using, and I will show it by using an example that why we should not be using these filters. So again, we'll go to our PubMed, which is the commonest database or search engine. So this is just for an example, this web page showing the results. If I restrict, this is my response. So as I have until now, I have studied only neonates. I have done study in neonate only. So one can say, okay, use the restriction of neonate. If I apply this search filter, you can see that first it that is a bit slow. Pardon for that. Okay. So overall, there are 85 results only. But if I would like to apply the filter for newborn, thinking that, okay, all these studies will be neonate, you can see there are just 30 results. And believe me, those 55 it excluded, many of them are studies from neonates only. So this is not a very good and robust filter. So one should not restrict to the age. Second, I would show that I will not be using randomized control trial filter, although the Cochrane recommends. So I will click control trial and apply it. Then you will see that how many results appear. It shows only 2 randomized control trial are there. This is not true. There are 3 trials, randomized control trials. So it is missing the something which is mentioned in the title. The 3 which it missed contains the title as randomized control trial. But when we apply this filter, it is being missed. If I apply the filter of clinical trial also, then you will find that it has picked up a study which is not even a trial. But this is not an issue. If it is picking an extra, that is fine. Problem is missing. This can happen because this is done manually. You must have heard of the crowdfunding or the crowd search. The Cochrane uses that crowd search or crowd sorting, and one may have erroneously assigned an RCT to maybe cohort or case control study. So we can miss that. So that's why I always prefer not to use this study design filter. So this is regarding the restriction or limit. So as far as possible, do not use any restriction or limit while doing a systematic search. Next thing comes is how many studies should I try to include? How many databases? How much broad search? It depends upon the what is your scope and what is the sensitivity and precision balance. So what is the sensitivity? So let's understand by using this table. Whenever you fetch various articles from various databases, there will be four situations. One will be there will be certain relevant reports which are retrieved, suppose in PubMed. There will be few articles which are not retrieved in PubMed but are retrieved through other databases. There will be many irrelevant reports which are retrieved through PubMed, and there are many irrelevant reports which are not retrieved through PubMed. We want that we will include all these kind of things. It means we want to retrieve all the relevant articles. So the sensitivity will be out of the all relevant which are retrieved, how many were retrieved through the database. Suppose there were 100 total eligible trial, but PubMed search only 95. So sensitivity will be 95%. So similarly, what will be the precision? It is okay, we good to say that I want 100% sensitivity, but I know that during literature search, to find a one relevant study, there will be at least 15, 20, even more than that, irrelevant studies. So if I am having 100 relevant, suppose that 10,000 irrelevant, the precision will be 100 divided by 10,000, which will be very poor. So one has to make the balance, because more less is the precision, more is the laborious effort you have to put. So while doing a literature search, it is good to have maximized sensitivity, but we have to make a reasonable precision also. It should not be so liberal that precision is poor, but sensitivity always get an edge over the precision. That is an important while doing literature search. So once you have done the literature search, you have to do a dry run to identify whether there are too many or too few search. Suppose they are in millions, it means your search strategy is very broad, you have to narrow it. If there are very few, it means you have extremely restricted it, you have to broaden it. Again, you have to check for errors. So in PubMed, it will show the asterisk mark or exclamation mark to show that there are certain errors. So that can help us whether there is any mistake in the search strategy. Next thing is, you should always get your search strategy peer reviewed, and that person who is doing peer review should be different from the one who has built up. It is better to have involved the clinician for peer review. He or she will identify that whether search terms are appropriate or not, whether they are too broad or not. And nowadays we have a checklist, typically known as PRESS checklist, for peer review of the literature search. As I said previously, that for every database, the search strategy should be unique, and using these things we have to refine our search. So that will be important. So this is the PRESS checklist, which contain various components which we have already discussed, that you should use the mesh term, you should use the free term, you should use data specific search, and all these things. So one have to check their search strategy before finalizing it. So after doing search, one has to ask him or her whether my search search is adequate or not. So how to know that? One is definitely will use the PRESS checklist. If everything qualifies, it's fine. Second important thing will be, if ask the subject expert whether the studies which the search strategy picks, it includes the key studies which the researchers knows or no. Suppose you know a recently published trial and that is not captured by your search strategy. You can say, no, it is slightly incomplete. I would like to rerun. And you would like to check why the search is incomplete, whether that study which is published used the different terminologies which were not included in search, whether our search was too narrow, whether we have used any filter. So it is important to check for the case study. Similarly, our search strategy should pick up the reviews also. So we should search whether the previous published systematic or narrative reviews are captured or not. Rough rule is, at least there should be more than 10 irrelevant potentially relevant papers for the total finalized paper. Suppose in the final you included 5 papers only. At least there should be 50 relevant articles. If there are too less, it means our search strategy was relatively narrow. But this is a rough rule. It might be possible you have just 15 or 20. The literature is limited on that aspect. But as a broad rule, you can use it. So once you have done it, you should make effort that it should be up to date as much as possible. and you should mention the date database search, because somebody, if you have done search on today, somebody repeating that search after 15 days might get different results. It is likely that results will be different because more and more such research will be published after that. So you have to mention the exact date. If your strategy is more than 6 months old, please rerun it, because it is likely that few more studies have been published, and you should try to get the information on the ongoing studies, whether they have been published or presented at the conferences or not. It is good idea to set the database alerts to go the information whether any new research is published or not on the given aspect. Once you have done the literature search using the web databases, it is good to go through the references of the included reviews or study protocol, and you should try to document all those data search also. Suppose you find 10 more studies using the reference search, you should also document those 10 more and should include that in Prisma flowchart. So once you have searched the database, important is you have to record this search in replicable format, and you have to export it, because you cannot leave it in the web. You have to export it. You can export it using reference manager or Excel or CSV file format. There are various reference manager like Zotero, EndNote, or Mendeley, which can be used to export. There are various file format which various databases uses. So you should get a rough idea that which database reference manager use which kind of file format. You should never ever export the records using PDF or Word, because it will be too lengthy and you cannot use that such strategy if you download it in Word format. So once you have downloaded it, there are certain software which can make your life easy. The commonest one is Microsoft Excel, that you can download the search using Microsoft Excel and you sort it by manual mode. It is, as it is a manual thing, it will be laborious, but it will be accurate. Another database, Abstracker. This is free database. It is semi-automatic based on artificial intelligence. It can do data mining. It can identify irrelevant records, and it can help in the extraction of data also. Covidence is another software which is used by Cochrane collaborators. It is a paid software, free for only one review, but it is good for teamwork. Again, EndNote can be used for managing search, but it is a paid one. Ryan is a free software and it is good for screening title and abstract. So based on the availability and expertise and convenience, you can use either of these. So I will just take 2 or 3 minutes. You again take you to the web page to show that how actually we can build up this search as I have showed. So like infant, gastric residue, and randomized control trials, as we discussed. So again, this is the same search builder. So as I said that it is better to go through and I type neonate, it will show neonate as title abstract. I would like to use mesh term as infant, as we have seen that infant in mesh term. Then it will ask that how to combine it using and, add with or add with not. As I said that within a search concept, we should always combine using or. So once you clicked or, it appeared here that infant in title abstract or infant as a mesh term. You can use now as a free term also. Suppose use free term, I will click it. Now it will capture free term in title abstract as or. Now I can see that whether it is LBW or neonatal, anything. So once you have put the terms which you want to search, they will appear here in query box and you will click at search. So once you click at search, this PubMed will take you to the main page. It says that we have filter, we have to clear this filter. So you can see that after clearing filter, it's taking some time. We have one results. So nothing to worry, just again go to advanced. Now again we will search for the another thing. This was population. Now I would like to search for intervention. So intervention was gastric aspiration. So I can search gastric aspiration. One can say that should I search gastric aspiration in all fields or title abstract? So as I said, it might be possible that nobody has used the term gastric aspiration in title or abstract. So it is wiser to use it in all fields. Typically for interventions, it is always better to use the all fields. So use gastric aspiration. I can use it as mesh term if there is any. I know that there is no such mesh term, but still I will put it to show it. Gastric aspiration. So it again, so itself that then again combine with or, not the and. Then I can use pre-feed aspiration in type, maybe in all fields. So pre-feed aspiration using or. So just 3 words, then click it at search. Have to be more elaborate. It is just for example that I am restricting it, but it has to be more elaborate. You can see that it writes the following term was not found in PubMed aspiration. So I said that it will show whether there are any error or not. There are only 6,000 results. Again, go to the advanced option. Go here. This will show the exclamation mark, and you click at the details. It shows that this word was not found. So you can, there is no terminology as gastric aspiration in S terms. So you can remove it. Okay. So third thing was randomized control trial. So it is unlikely that there is any RCT and that does not mention it in title or abstract. So I will use it in title or abstract. So may put a randomized control trial, or maybe randomly as a variation word, that combine it with or 2 groups, as we said, or placebo, anything. Or we may be using mesh term as randomized control trial, because we know that there's mesh term for this. So mesh term as randomized controlled. It appeared here, that randomized control trial combined with or. Again search it. So once we click search, again it will go to PubMed. There are millions of for randomized control trial, which is expected. So again, go back to the advanced option. Now we have to combine these 3 concepts, because we said that in between concept we were using or, but to combine these 3 we will be using and. So add this to query box. Now add this terminology as and. Again, I would like to all trials to be studies to be randomized control trial. So add with and. So once you click it, you will find that everything got combined in this query box, and click on search. So once you click on search, you will get just 128 results. So you have seen that there were millions of results for the one term, but once combined all these 3, there are just 128 results. So this is relatively narrow because I will not use all the words due to constraint time. So we can use the words as per the various free terms also. So this is how we build up search strategy. Once we develop this kind of search strategy, we have to document, as we have done. Like we have searched for infant in a similar format. So this was the number of items found. We have searched for randomized control trial. These were the items. We have searched for gastric residue. These were the items. And once we combine all 3 and this was the total result. So this is how we should be recording our search strategy. Similarly, if we are doing search in central, this is the way the search strategy appears, and we need to record the similar way. So this is how to record it. So now after this long session, my takeaway messages will be very simple. First is our search strategy have to be very comprehensive, but at the same time transparent and reproducible. We have to draft our question in PICO format. You must have seen that search strategy was made only based on the PICO terms. Remember the rule of 2. Set minimum 2 databases and minimum 2%. More is better. You should always try to maximize the sensitivity while maintaining certain precision, and try to use minimum or no filter at all. Important thing is review your search, record it meticulously, refine it, and rerun it if it is more than 6 months old. So thank you, and I will be happy to take questions.
Hello, Mitchell, are you there?
Yeah. Excellent lecture, Dr. Jokender. So this was systematic literature search for systematic review. How would you see it being different if we have literature search for a bedside clinical case? So I have a patient who has, say, fever with rash, with some lymph node, and I'm looking for, okay, what am I dealing with? So how would you guide that you do a search for a clinical problem at hand, or you have a child with fever and low TLC, low platelet? What could it be? I have never encountered such a scenario. So what clinical search can we do for this?
Okay, sir. So whenever the PubMed give us option to see search the clinical query also. If we go to PubMed advanced option, it will show the search for a clinical query, and we can put our clinical query there, and it will show the relevant results also. Although it will not be so extensive, but it will show us the relevant results. So I can just show by doing it practical demonstration if you allow me.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, so okay, so okay, if you go to this page PubMed, it will show advanced, and there are certain things: learn, find, download, and explore. Under find, you can see there are three options: advanced search, clinical queries. If you click at the clinical queries, then it will show, it will ask that what is the category. This is particularly for COVID, but for clinical categories, you can search here that what are the categories. Suppose you want to search for the current treatment for COVID. I will put it treatment. Under category, again, I want clinical therapy. I want to put whether it is broad or narrow, and here search can be COVID-19. COVID-19. So if I put COVID-19 under this clinical query, treatment, therapy, and broad search, you can see that it will show certain results. It will show intermittent versus standard prophylaxis, this in this trial. So there will be various results. So you can go through these results. It might be possible that they are not very relevant to your question, but you have to juggle it around. It will help in this way. So on a broader concept, it will give us an idea and can help in the bedside problem solving also. So this is how queries search in PubMed.
Also guide us that if we have a baby who has some multiple malformations, and if we want to see if these malformations add up to certain genetic syndrome, and is there OMIM, what do we do about OMIM, or search software about how do we search for a syndromic search for a baby who has 1 or 2 or 3 malformations evident.
So if we similarly, we can do search in OMIM also. So important will be, while we are, what are the key anomalies for which we are extremely sure, and they have to be very context specific. They should not be vague, like facial dysmorphism. It cannot happen that you have to write like telecanthus, any extra tag, ear tag, or broad field term. You have to use those standard terms, and you just build up your search in OMIM by putting all these terminologies. So once you put up all these terminologies, it will show certain syndromes, and you have to go through those syndromes one by one. So OMIM does not allow you very much, but it helps you to broaden your search in that way. So for using 5, 6, or 7, whatever the findings which we have, we can do similar search in OMIM also.
We have one question on what is the relevance of H index and I10 index for a researcher?
Okay, So practically, although this is not relevant to this, I would say that, sorry, 1 second, please. So what is I10? I10 is the number of publications which achieved 10 or more citations. So suppose somebody has 50 publications with 10 or more citation, the I10 will be 50. H index is if we arrange the publication as per our number of citations, and suppose there are 50 publications and we are arranging, the highest one is 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. So till what number, suppose we come at the sixth one and it has 5 citations. So the number of articles which have 5 or more will be, H index will be 5. Suppose there are 6 citations, 6 papers which have citation 6 or more, the H index will become 6. So this is the way we calculate H index, and I10 is definitely, as the name indicate, how many have 10 or more. Although there is a lot of controversy on using this as an I10 index, so one should not go into that which one is better or should we use it or not.
Amit sir, are you there? Somebody, Dr. Kalyan has asked, can you repeat about the explode again?
Yeah. So explode means, as I showed, that there is one mesh term like infant or newborn, but under this mesh term there were neonate, such terms, neonate, neonatal, very low birth weight, small for gestation plate. So if you use the word explode, it search for the variations. It automatically will search for all those word variations without ourselves searching them individually. So this is, we know, says explode, and this is a default option in PubMed as well as Embase and the Central, unless until we restrict it. We should always explode, because we do not know which database has used which search terms. So it is always better to use explode. So that database will automatically search for all the relevant terminologies.
And Dr. Jogender, if you have to look for guidelines, so
yes, sir.
What is the best place to look for guidelines? Say guidelines for COVID in pediatric age group, guideline for management of COVID in perinatal age group, guideline for management of UTI in children. So just type in PubMed. Where do you place Google search in all this? You just go to Google,
Okay.
type your question and just see what comes over, what it throws.
Sir, regarding guidelines, I would say that I would like to first start with National Guideline Clearinghouse. If there are major guidelines, it is likely that it will be available on that. So if I do not get any guideline on National Guideline Clearinghouse, then my next thing will be that if I know that there are certain societies which provide this guideline, I will search on that, or maybe I can put directly on Google that whether there are any guideline on that aspect, and whether it is new or not, whether it follow the agri criteria or not, that will be regarding the guideline search. But doing Google search, I would say that if we are searching Google for guideline, then it's fine and we can get the relevant new guideline, it is okay. But if we are doing Google search and we are finding some studies, and based on that study we are taking decision, that is not appropriate. Because
what do you think the PG students are doing these days?
So that is the part, sir.
What is the reality? Ground
so
reality kya hai?
So it typically happens that they type on the Google, whatever comes first, okay, I have read this article, and this is what they say, without even considering that this is a single study, whether it is relevant or not, what are the guidelines. So whenever we are try to answer any question, clinical question, so first and foremost step is to look for the recent guideline or recommendation. If there are no guideline or recommendation, look for the large systematic review or meta-analysis. If there are not such thing, then go for the RCT. So there is hierarchy of evidence, and guideline based on the agri criteria is above all those. It is at the top. So rather than going to Google and type it and then tell this is the answer, it is always better to look for the relevant literature and follow the hierarchy.
And if I find a study which is which I am interested in, and it says, okay, pay 35 euros to open the study, what should I do?
Sir,
I don't have
Actually,
money.
no.
I don't have
Sir, I
financial
think
grant like you have at PGI.
no, sir. Sir, practical solution. Everybody knows that in India, I would not say openly, but everybody uses Sci-Hub. So nowadays, because court has banned it for some time, and we do not have any new literature coming on it, it is becoming difficult practically. Luckily, at PJ, we have access to almost all the journals, and we can easily find it using the remote access also at home. But definitely, if you do not have access, then it's difficult. Nowadays, one advantage of this research platform like ResearchGate or EndNote is we can get the author copy if we try to search it. So that is the only possible option, sir. Because otherwise, the publishing houses they are charging
Well,
a lot of
most
money,
students
and
who could be joining here, they would have faced this problem. That you want to look, okay, this article is what I was looking for. Oh, this is a paid article. Hardly anything is free these days.
agree, sir. So first
So
thing
they
is
should call you
definitely,
and send you the, if they send you the article, you would download from PGI portal and send it to them.
sir, I don't think this is a feasible option. Our librarian also will not be able to do that. So although, as I said, that there are certain website which provide it, and openly I cannot say that this is the website where one have to go and download those. But other than the one which has been blocked, there are certain others also which can provide, and they are not legal in the sense in the India, but they are still browsable and can provide.
Other thing is there are many groups on WhatsApp, Telegram, where if you type the article, one of them will have access to the database and they will send the article within no time.
Yeah, agree, sir. I strongly agree with Dr. Akash. Nowadays, rather than doing search by my own, I
Yeah.
do not send it to PJ library. I put it in WhatsApp that please somebody have access, please send it. And in next 5 minutes, I will get that article.
It is faster than the majority of the librarians.
Right.
Absolutely. One person helps the other.
Right, sir. And Telegram is much more helpful in that way.
Any more questions, Dr. Akash?
I think one of the common questions is what is the importance of having an account in PubMed?
Okay. So I would suggest that whenever you are doing literature search in PubMed, Embase, Scopus, any database, please have an account. Because without an account, if you so always have an account and save that search. Sometime in some of the databases like Web of Science, it is not stored as default. So always send it to your saved search databases if you want to replicate that search and want to use it in future.
If
Because
anybody,
your
yeah.
PubMed is absolutely free.
If any other participant has any question, kindly raise your hands. We'll unmute you and you can directly ask before we call it a day today. Sir, your last comments, Amit sir.
No, it was just an excellent talk. And this is something which we keep on learning all the time. And residents, they have to work hard on this and go away from Google to maybe just a Google Scholar. Google Scholar is also something which is reasonably good. And people should use that portal as well. And systematic search. Systematic search is something if you are doing for publication, it is good. But most often for bedside information, you don't need it. And all the systematic searches which are there, your patient may not be technically fitting into that at that point of time. So more than any clinical search, one has to realize that experience, your knowledge of your teachers, your seniors, their experience may make that, that if it says that this will not, PDA will not close with this, not enough evidence. But there is a certain subset of patients which may actually be, that may help. So that is where the role of experience comes in, and what evidence is there is for a general population, but for that one patient, you are the best judge, and your clinical judgment should never be considered less important. And good clinicians are always way ahead of researchers because they have that inkling in mind that probably this is working. And once they show it in some observational studies, then the researchers go back to the research and do a research on that, and then they prove it, yes, it is beneficial, or yes, it is not beneficial. So the clinical mind is always ticking, and it has the hunch that I think that this is working. That is very important as well. So young people need to develop that art to see, okay, this is probably working. If you have, every round should raise a question, a clinical question, a research question, and that research question should go down to find an answer to the problem which you encounter at the rounds. Otherwise, India is famous only for copying result papers done outside and then doing it in PGI at AIIMS and in SGPGI in Indian population. No new novel idea ever comes from India. Even big institutions like AIIMS, they are poor in bringing out any new idea. So there could be 30 years of DM at PGI, but any novel idea has come out which has changed the trend? It's not. From AIIMS, any new novel idea has come out? No. Because we never dare to think what our seniors have taught. So there is something known as teacher worship, and we are into that teacher worship or system worship. Until unless that goes, until unless the young faculty questions what the seniors are doing, until unless the DM resident or the MD resident is made fearless enough to say that this is all bullshit, I don't agree with what you are doing, I have this doubt in my mind because of XYZ reason. So until that is there, nothing new will ever come from India. And our publications are basically for our CV. They are only add on to numbers. I have 10 publications, then by associate professor I have 25 publications, then by professor level I have 100 publications, but nobody will look at them. And we go to West and they would say, "Yaar, ye kya hai ye? This is all beka." So even if you have one publication, but that is worthwhile, that changes the way people manage things, one should look for that. That is my appeal to all young researchers and residents. Question your faculty about what they are doing. मैंने जब DM complete करी 2002 में, AIIMS से हमें सिखाया गया था CPAP करने का ये तरीका है. I was so fixated that this is the way you increase pressure, this is the way you increase FiO2.